Tonight's discussion, everyone, is partly on the imperative task of trimming the bloated bureaucracy and reducing the cost of governance in Nigeria, in a country where the weight of administrative overhead often stifles progress. There is an announcement by the federal government to adopt recommendations from the Steve Oronsaye report, signals significant stride towards efficiency and fiscal responsibility. I would like to remind you of what the special advisor to the president, Ms. Hadissa Abala Usman, said a few days ago when that decision was made at the Federal Executive Council meeting. Take a listen to her.
Our administration has taken a very bold step towards implementation on aspects of the Oronsaye panel report, which speaks to mergers, subsuming, scrapping, and relocation of parastatals, agencies, and commissions of federal government. This is in line with the need to reduce cost of governance and ensure that we have streamlined efficiency across the governance value chain. Agencies that are required to be merged, I'll take it. National Agency for Control of AIDS, HIV/AIDS, NACA, to be merged with the Center for Disease Control in the Federal Ministry of Health. National Emergency Management Agency to be merged with the National Commission for Refugee Migration and Internally Displaced Persons. The Border Communities Development Agency to be subsumed to function as a department under the National Boundary Commission. The National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission to be subsumed into the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission. The National Blood Service Commission to be converted into an agency and relocated to the Federal Ministry of Health.
Hadissa Bala Usman, the advisor to President Bola Tinubu. This strategic move is aiming at scrapping, merging, and streamlining of various ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, as a pivotal moment in Nigeria's quest for leaner, more effective governance structures. Well, that's captured by the Steve Oronsaye report, which about 3 other presidents have not been able to really implement. There are white papers to that effect, but they've never come to pass. But now that Nigeria is suffering some kind of lean purse, not because we do not have money, because there are those who debate that Nigeria is not a country without money or potential, but it is perhaps how these resources are being administered. However, there are a series of debates over how the federal government should tackle the issue, and there are those asking for a review of the original report. Tonight, as we delve into these multifaceted issues, we must scrutinize not only the potential savings, but also the broader implications of service delivery, accountability, and the socio-economic landscape of the nation. At a time that the government of the day spent about 8 to 9 months in office, and the issues surrounding the economy, the socio-economic well-being of the citizens of the country, and agitation across the land. Tonight, I'm being joined by a former Minister of Aviation and the Chancellor and founder at the Athena Institute of Policy and Leadership, Mr. Osita Chidoka. He joins us live here in Abuja studio. Many thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah, let me quickly get your view on the quote that I got from part of what the president said to the Qatari government and the people in Qatar and investors about what goes on. Because it's a portrayal of what goes on in the country when he says, do not give bribe to anyone. If anyone is asking for bribe, report to me. What do you make of that kind of statement from the president?
An unfortunate statement. I was shocked, embarrassed that he's continuing the Buhari-type demarketing of Nigeria. There are many Nigerians who will not ask for a bribe, who will not stop business. The minority of people who will probably ask you for a bribe are the minority in Nigeria. The job of the president is to sell Nigeria, to be the chief spokesperson and the chief salesperson of Nigeria. And I think that this is the lacuna that comes when there is poor briefing from agencies of government. So I don't really blame the president. I blame the inability of people like the Minister of Information, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, about what is the theme of the government. The government has to adopt a theme. We are pro-investment. We want to attract foreign exchange. We are in dire need of foreign exchange. So our first mission is to deodorize Nigeria, to tell the good story about Nigeria, to tell the African rising narrative, the Nigeria rising narrative, to say that this change of government is, a new mandate that tells you how Nigeria has been able to sustain democracy for 24 years now, going to 25. So the story about Nigeria is not the story of bribery. It's not the story of corruption. And we don't want a president who people are calling from Qatar to report people who take bribe. They should report them to the police, to the EFCC or ICPC or any other office of government that deals with that. I do not think that his contemporaries in other countries are busy looking for bribe takers.
Yeah, you don't think he's a president who says, I want to take, I do not want anyone around me within government to stifle the investment arrangement that we've made, because it has happened in the Halliburton scandal. We've seen a lot of scandals in this country where investment drive comes into the country, but it's being stifled by corruption issues. You don't think that it's learned from the past to say, do not allow all of what you have heard in the past to affect your judgment about investing in Nigeria?
Hell no. Did you hear the president of Italy comment about the Ajib bribery case in Nigeria? That a business goes to do their business and spends bribes. It's not the business of the government of Italy. It's not the business of the government of Nigeria. The people that are caught doing it should be punished. And we have processes for punishing it. No foreign investor will be happy to know that he needs to talk to the president to be able to reverse an issue of corruption or bribery. Nobody in the world would like to do that. The fact that Halliburton, you mentioned, was a case. Have you heard any president from the country of Halliburton coming out to speak about the Halliburton case? We had the Enron case. Americans went and passed a law and said, these are things that we should stop companies from doing going forward. When the banks collapsed, they passed the Sarbanes-Oxley law saying remove investment banking from commercial banking. Countries, presidents take action to systematically solve a problem, not whistleblowing and catching thieves.
So you think that the optics for Nigeria...
I don't think the optics for Nigeria...
It's
not good optics for Nigeria. It's not good optics for Nigeria. I hope that in future he will not say this again. He should find a way to reverse himself and just say, these are some of the things. I just want to show you that we are on top of the situation. But the truth of the matter is that Nigerian banks are operating around the world. Nigerian banks are operating in the US. UBA has a banking license in the US. GT Bank has a banking license in the UK. Why are you going to make people believe that Nigerians are bribe takers? Why would the president of Nigeria condone that? He shouldn't. Because this is a way of signaling to the world, yes, we are endemically corrupt, or as they said, fantastically corrupt, and I'm here to solve the problem. But that's not what the world wants to hear. They want to hear that when you take a case to judiciary in Nigeria, it will last about 3 months till you get judgment. They don't want to hear that you will spend 9 months in the court, 2 years in the court looking for judgment. They don't want to hear that you need to go and see a judge for you to get judgment. They don't want to hear that the police in Nigeria will ask you to bring money to go and investigate. Those are the issues that bother any foreign investor. If you look about the president catching the thieves.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps the optics for you don't think that it sits well for the image of Nigeria globally. There are also the communication of even the president had said it to the Qatari government or leaders in Qatar. Maybe it shouldn't have gotten out of the room. Maybe it shouldn't have been communicated.
This should be like a dinner table talk, just saying, if you have any issues, if you have any obstacles, but not the word bribe. It could be obstacles. It may not just be bribe. It may just be obstacles. We have obstacles like the issue of TINAPA that the custom took a strong position against. It wasn't a case of bribery. So some foreign investors come to Nigeria and some government agencies in the discharge of their functions have said, no, you can't do this or that. And they run to the president or they say, we are foreign investors. But will you do that in your country? If you were in your own country, the answer is no. So it is not every time that there is an obstacle that is a case of bribery. Sometimes an obstacle because it's a case of principles.
When the president said your money will flow in smoothly in and out,
yes,
is he describing a new atmosphere of investment in Nigeria? Because there are those who will believe that investment in Nigeria is not as easy as the president has portrayed it.
Well, I think that's the kind of message he needs to give. That's the kind of message he needs to give, that we're a investment-friendly environment. The information he needs to give to the world is that despite our current foreign exchange challenges, that we're ready for business and we're going to respect and honor our obligations to our debt holders, to people who are doing business in Nigeria, to people who have issues with transferring money. You see, the important news is not the news of what the president said. The important news is the news of what happened in Nigeria in the last 1 week. 2 major Nigerian companies reported that the foreign exchange, the devaluation of the naira has wiped out their shareholders' funds. That is Nestle, our foremost company in the stock exchange. MTN, for their first time in Nigeria, they have gotten 700 and something billion loss, and saying our shareholders' funds have been wiped out. That is the message. That's what the world is reading. They're not reading what you're saying about free flow of money in and out. So what you need to be doing now is to be explaining that the volatility that is with the naira now is going to resolve itself going forward. That volatility is because this is the steps you need to take to keep Nigeria going. And explain that there is some logic to what you're doing, that there is some thinking to what is going on in Nigeria now. Because that news of Nestle, GSK has left Nigeria, the other pharmaceutical company has exited Nigeria, and Nestle is now announcing we're going to raise fresh capital because we've lost our shareholders' funds. That's the news.
What does this mean? That in the 9 months of President Tinubu,
they've lost the foreign exchange devaluation of the naira has wiped out their value. So if they had $100 million worth of naira before, that naira is now worth maybe 20 million. So they're saying we've lost value from 700 naira that we are managing. We've gone all the way to 1,500 naira. So 100% loss.
The president has said, I am the man in the saddle. I asked for this job and I will get it done. Yeah. And he said that the pains that we are experiencing are initial pains of the policies of government. Yes. And this will go away. Do you agree, considering what we are seeing in the last 3 months or so, which have significantly impacted on the livelihood, the well-being of the average citizen?
Well, I agree with him, interestingly. I so much agree with him. He's in a catch-22 situation. As at June 2023, there was no money. The foreign exchange was all booby-trapped with debts. Oil revenues was negative. The foreign exchange situation was almost 10 billion old forward sales, crude oil forward sales. So the 8 years of Buhari was a major value-destroying 8 years. The APC government led by Buhari destroyed value in a significant manner, in an unprecedented manner, just similar to his 1984 destruction of value. So now, but he did it for 8 years, so the damage was humongous. Now, to cure that damage, there is no switch bulb that you can just light and things will do raise out. So that government had acquired almost 23 trillion in ways and means, had borrowed money in dollars that has significantly hindered the government's ability to have foreign exchange because they need to service those debts in dollars. Now, so any government that comes in is going to face significant headwinds.
Even if it was Atiku, if it was Peter Obi, if it was Showore, if it was anyone.
Headwinds. Now, the difference that the president is suffering is not economics. The economy in Nigeria was going to go belly up. We're going to have to pay for the foreign exchange that they were manipulating and selling at 400 naira to themselves and to their cronies. We're going to pay a price for it at some point. So that price, this president has beaten the bullet and said, let's pay it. Now, what the challenge is that he has lack of political consensus in Nigeria on taking these tough decisions. The people that voted for him are a minority in Nigeria. 63% of the voters did not vote for him. So he needs to woo them that now I'm president, I need to bring you guys on board because I'm going to take decisions that are going to hurt. So he needed that. He's not doing that. He needed to also tell the country that before we even go forward, I am going to tighten the belt. As the captain of a plane will say to you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be expecting turbulence. Please sit down, tighten your seatbelt, fasten your seatbelt, no movement, all crew sit down. We're going into turbulence. That's what the captain announces when he's heading to turbulence. Now, this president has ignored the 67% and continued with his 37%, 63%, and continued with his 37%. Not only did he continue with his 37%, he has taken it to another half of his 37%, even in his appointments and body language. So he has taken it further away. Now, what he doesn't understand is that this is no time for grandstanding. Decisions are going to be difficult anyway. It is time to show, first of all, I am biting the bullet. I'm going to cut down on my own expenses. I'm going to make sure that governments across all boards are cut down. He needed to have even brought up the Oronsaye report first, cut down the Senate and the House of Reps to ask our national question. Do we really need two houses in this country? He needed to have kept the country talking and say, look, we need to find ways to cut these costs.
Some kind of restructuring.
I don't want to use the word
aligning the structure or rejigging the structure.
I don't want to use the word restructuring. It has its own connotations in Nigeria. I want to just use the word, the cost I'm carrying is heavy.
Rethinking the manner in which we do things.
Spending money. So that would have been akin to what Babangida did when he came to power after Buhari. He said to the country, you know, this is Professor Cookie. Go and find out from Nigerians what kind of political arrangement they would like. Then he had Aboyade, the economist, set up the 50-man economic team, Professor Aboyade, Ken and Zimiro, both communists, both Marxist lecturers, and they brought them together. Then he led the country on an IMF debate. Should we take IMF loan or not? The country said, let's take the conditionalities, but not the loan. So we went ahead. So when the SAP difficulties came, people were expecting that difficulty.
Already?
He had our consensus.
Let me pause you for a moment, because when we come back, a very difficult conversation on cutting the cost of governance. Is it window dressing, or is it a real deal that the President Tinubu government had presented to Nigeria in wanting to implement a portion of the Oronsaye report? There are those who say, go back and review that report. It's in fact outdated. I'd like to get your view, but we need to take some break. We'll come back after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. A former Minister of Aviation and Chancellor and founder, Athena Institute of Policy and Leadership, Osita Chidoka, has been speaking with us on the program tonight. You were talking about how we need to shed some weight, to shed some load, to be able to spend what we really have. But the question I'd like to ask you quickly before we get into that, do you, in your mind, think that the president is doing a good job in handling the economy? There are those who have high hopes of him, that is because of his background in accounting and where those things that he has done, being the governor in Lagos and the manner in which he has run that state, perhaps it will better than any other government or any other president we've had in the past. He will handle the economy better. In your own assessment, do you think that he has done a good job in the past 8 or 9 months?
It will be better. And the reason is that, you know, when you run subnational governments, it's a good training place to go national, but it is not all that you need to go national. So I think that the challenge is that we live in a dynamic world, that a lot has changed. But the team he trusts and the people he's used to and familiar with, you know, are for the first time being confronted with a sovereign state, where their decisions are not going to be covered up by the federal government from Lagos. You borrow money from the World Bank to do the red line or the blue line. You know, it's contingent on Nigeria's sovereign rating. This time around, you're the sovereign. So I can see some getting used to the federal government.
They are not really getting up to
they're not up to speed immediately. I can see some getting used.
Do you see capacity, or is just an initial glitch?
Capacity is, you know, neither here nor there. The most important thing I see is that you need to, when you come into a sovereign government, when you move from one level of government to other, the tendency is to find people at that level to transition your team to behaving like a national government and not a sub-national government. The instincts are different. You can, you know, go to your state house of assembly, pass a law, you can spend money and go back and reverse. But at the federal government, you're now on the spotlight. Any single thing you say can affect investor confidence. It can affect the way and manner everything is happening. So I think that not having transitioned well is a challenge.
So, I mean, you worked under the Obasanjo government.
Yes.
And there's something that a lot of people would say about the Obasanjo, the Okonjo-Iwealas of this world, the Dora Akunyilis of this world, the Nasser El-Rufais of this world, that those who will say, give it to Olusegun Obasanjo, he's got a stellar team that worked with him. Yes. And there are those who will say the same thing of Bola Tinubu, that some of the finest politicians in this country, technocrats who have come into politics, have come under the tutelage or working closely with Bola Tinubu. Are you impressed by the kind of team that he has, especially in the economy?
So, you see what you said about Obasanjo. When he went for Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, he went from Adamu Chiroma to Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, if you remember, in the first term.
Yeah.
And things weren't going well. So you needed a name in the room that the people in the world will recognize.
You don't think Tinubu has those kind of characters?
Tell me, that who walks into Washington, D.C., and they know him?
Ali Pate.
Okay, Pate in the Ministry of Health, yes, I agree.
Tuga.
Yes, he's known in the... I don't know, yes, Tuga maybe. But you're talking of the economy, so you shifted off to the social area. We're talking of the economy, and you left it. But yeah, so, and if you look at how Pate is defining his job, how he's, the kind of people he's bringing on the team, you can see their global experience and knowledge in the field. Because you see, you have to talk to donors. You have to talk to people who you will be speaking the same language with. That doesn't mean that these are the best people to hire. I'm just saying that there is a need, a balance for you to find a team that, you know, when they step out to London and you say, you know, they've known each other, so they've worked in the bank.
So you're not really impressed so far?
And all that. So what I feel is that what we have today is a team that did very well at the subnational government, you know, 15 years ago. So now they are the national government. There's a learning curve, and you could see that learning curve is impacting the country.
The approach of the president, or the move to implement part of Oronsaye report, what do you make of it?
Well, it's a move in the right direction. The Oronsaye report was brought at a time after Nigeria recovered from the, you know, people forget that we recovered from the 2008 economic crisis, international economic crisis. And we recovered because we had a buffer. We had some money in savings, which made it possible for the Akeredolu government to recover. And then he became head of service. And after being head of service, President Jonathan said, okay, look at this again. Review this. We have a lot of costs. But you know, one of the things that I thought should be done today is to put some numbers to that cost.
So that we know what we are actually shedding.
What are we really shedding? What are the numbers? That is why some governments have think tanks and they have institutes that look at a policy and present the evidence-based data. So you're saying there will be no job lost. How can that be? Are we going to have 2 directors of finance in NACA, and when you match them together, are you going to have 2 chief executives? Are you going to have 2 directors of planning, 2 deputy directors of planning? No. Somebody has to go. So if people have to go, and it's something we have to think through, what is important is how much are we going to be saving with this, you know, process? Let's put some numbers to it. And when we put that number, let's also put the numbers of those that were transitioning out of these jobs. What are we going to do with them as we transition them out in the middle of an economic crisis? So those are the 2 important questions.
And I'd like to ask you, I mean, you sat in the Federal Executive Council, and at the time that Oronsaye report was made ready, we're looking at trimming to about 131 the MDAs and the agencies of government that we had, about 280-something that we had. But between that, at the time when the report was made ready and governments were trying to make sense of it, things have really changed. And that's why there are those who have argued that that report is actually outdated. Look at the figures of the MDAs that we have. As of 2021, the MDA figures had moved to 1,484. The Oronsaye report envisaged a reduction to 161. But look, we have, as of 2021, 1,484 MDAs and 541 corporations. Those who will say maybe the Tinubu government did not put into consideration trying to implement the Oronsaye report, did not update it. What problem do you see about that?
So that's a small argument, and it's for me, the government is not you see, when you say the Oronsaye report, what I hear the government saying is that they are reviewing the cost of governance as it affects the size of government agencies.
And the bottom line of the money that
I don't think it's going to end with the Oronsaye report. The Oronsaye report gives them an entry report to now say we're setting up a new committee to start. I think I like that approach. Let's start with what has been done already. So in the course of bringing from 263 to this, we now found that we have 1,000 something. So our target is, this was a 50% reduction. So let's apply the 50% rule to the 1,400. Let's go back again. So I think he has given them a basis to start. But the problem I have is the National Assembly has to come to terms that they have to stop creating agencies of government. And the federal government, the president, will refuse to assent to any new law that creates a new agency.
You know the irony, sir?
Yes.
A day after that pronouncement was made, there was a bill that passed the second reading for another agencies of government to be created.
Yes, it was. I complained about it during our time. That while we're discussing this, the National Assembly is creating new agencies. The new agencies are coming up as at the time we're having the conversation. But what is more important is that this is an opportunity for the government to do a serious issue. And I'll tell you what the serious issue is. The serious issue is that the Nigerian federal government have an exclusive list and have a concurrent list. The Nigerian federal government is in charge of exclusively items on the exclusive list. But the Nigerian government have expanded greatly their activity in implementation on items in the concurrent list. So you find a situation where we have Commission for Federal Government Colleges. You know, there's a commission for that. There's a commission for every damn thing you can think about, because the federal government have moved from regulating the concurrent list to implementing the concurrent list. That's why we have federal medical centers in all the state capitals, federal universities in all the states. So the federal government should pull back. It's not an Oronsaye report problem now. What is the philosophy of government in Nigeria? Should the federal government intervene in the concurrent list by way of implementation? Or should they pull back from the recurrent list and face the concurrent list and face the exclusive list and allow themselves to create regulatory framework for the... So in education, this is a regulation to make sure the national standards are met. In health, we're no more doing federal medical centers and state governments, we're handing this over to you. That portion of the budget that run all those institutions, give it to the states. Now, people will say, oh, the states have no capacity to run it. I say, aha. Well, you guys have been asking for true federalism. Federalism has come. So let's go back to the federalism. Nigeria's problem is that the federal government, starting from the military in 1970 after the war, when they took over regional universities and made it federal universities, instead of giving it to the states that came out of the region, they took it over and made it federal. They took over state hospitals and made it federal. Since that time, the federal government has been expanding in the concurrent list. That is the philosophical question before this government.
If you were to tell the president something tonight, and perhaps, which is the bottom line, because cutting the cost of governance is actually touching on the bottom line. The revenue that goes into the current expenditure and running actual cost of governance, those who work in government, that the taxpayers pay salaries and run their holidays, run their offices, run the zoo, run their rents in Abuja, run their zonal offices. These are the fundamentals. For you, with your experience, you ran FRSC, you ran the Ministry of Aviation. If there is something that will be significant, that will be beyond window dressing, because there are those who will criticize this government to say, you want to cut costs of governance, yet you created more ministries, broke down the Ministry of Sport, Youth and Tourism into about 2 or 3 ministries, and you say you want to cut costs of governance. To wrap up this conversation, what would you say to the president tonight that will be significant for him to do that will hit the bottom line in really cutting the cost of governance?
I will say to him, President Bola Tinubu, remember what Governor Bola Tinubu used to say, that Nigeria Federation is faulty, that the federal government is overextended, that we shouldn't have an accountant general. The first time I heard it was from Governor Bola Tinubu, that we have accountant general of the federation. There is no organ called the federation, that we should have the accountant general of the federal government. and the one of the Federation, that this one is not an accountant general of the Federation. It is of the federal government. So let him go back and say, philosophically, the federal government of Nigeria will make Nigerians safe, provide all that is in the exclusive list, and allow the state governments to lead on all the matters, to implement all the matters that are in the concurrent list. I will no more participate in the concurrent list. So that way, all these agencies, I will devolve them to the states, and I will give the money that I've been spending on them. We will share it pro rata and give it out to the states and say, go and run them. We will set up, monitoring and national standards. But if he doesn't retreat, if President Tinubu's argument as Governor Tinubu, he doesn't now want to do it as president, then Nigeria is doomed, because cutting down the agencies is not going to provide new services. It's not going to help in making those items work. The idea that we were able to pull back on AIDS is the work of NACA. NACA did a great job in helping us in global funding, in getting the awareness that has reversed the growth of HIV/AIDS in Nigeria. The Nigerian agencies have done well, but that is not the job of the federal government in some of these cases. So they need to go back and answer that philosophical question. Who should take care of the concurrent
Which touches to the core of our existence
as a nation.
Osita Chidoka is a former Minister of Aviation and sits as the Chancellor and the founder of Athena Institute of Policy and Leadership. Many thanks indeed for those thoughts that you've shared. And the experience that we've gleaned from your years of running agencies of government. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this.
We take a break, everyone. And there is a looming disaster in our education sector. The universities are at the risk of being shut down. Our senior staff members and non-academic staff members plan to embark on an industrial strike. They've given the federal government 7 days ultimatum. Remember what happened with ASU when they shut down our universities? That may happen again. The president of SANU, Mohammed Ibrahim, will be joining me next on the program. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back. There is a looming strike action in our universities. Threat to our education sector. This is because the Joint Action Committee of the Non-Academic Staff Union of Education and Associated Institution, NASU, and the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, have given the federal government a 7-day ultimatum to address their grievances or be met with an industrial action which could lead to the disruptions to administrative and governance processes within the university sector if the government does not act promptly. The unions have alleged in a communication released on Friday that the federal government has continued to fail to address the issue of unpaid salaries for their members for the past 4 months. According to them, despite sending protest letters to the Chief of Staff, to the President, and the Minister of Education on the 13th of February, the government has remained silent on the matter, leaving them in a state of uncertainty. They lamented that the continued neglect of the federal government is unacceptable and undermines the efforts of NASU and SANU to maintain industrial peace and tranquility within the university sector, while acknowledging the government's payment of salaries to their colleagues, the academic staff. NASU and SANU insist that equal treatment should be extended to non-teaching staff members as well. Statement one that the patience of NASU and SANU members is wearing thin, and if the government fails to address the issue in the next 7 days, they may be forced to take decisive and lawful actions. Tonight, I'm being joined by Mohammed Ibrahim, the president of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, who is a co-signatory to that letter sent out on Friday. Thank you so much, comrade, for joining us tonight.
Nice being here. Sure.
Hearing about strike in university is scary. Looking at how many months that students stayed at home when ASU went on strike. You said it, 4 months, they've not paid you your salary. How true is that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Shaun. It's quite absurd that we have to speak like this, and this is because we have been clearly shown, that we do not matter in the system. While we all know that there is no university that can function without the non-teaching staff, because we are majorly populated by professionals. We oil the engine of the administration of every university, and therefore treating, the this segment of staff with some disdain, doesn't speak good of the system. Clearly, what is happening is that in 2022, all the university-based unions went on strike. 4 of us, ASU, SANU, NASU, and NAT. For us in NASU and SANU, we went on our strike on the 27th of March, and then we suspended on the 27th of August after the intervention by the then Minister of Education, Malam Adamu. We had an agreement we signed, with the government to review the situation and ensure that justice is done. And the last part of that agreement was the non-victimization clause, which clearly states that nobody that took part in that strike should suffer any injustice, be it withholding of our salaries or any punishment, to be meted on any of our members. And government decided in May to stop the salaries for the non-teaching staff. And it was only restored, in September. And going forward, this government under Bola Tinubu gave a waiver, in October. It was a statement signed by the special advisor. And in that statement, it was said that all the tertiary institution unions were to be given 4 months' salaries, from what the government, kept behind. And today, as I speak to you, our colleagues in ASU have been able to get 4 months. And nobody's talking about our own, apart from the issues we're making.
NASU and SANU have not gotten?
Not a dime.
In the last 4 months?
Yes.
So October was the last time you got or something?
No. The salaries were actually for the year 2022. That is from April to August. That was what was not paid. And we made, representations and met with the current Minister of Education. He made promises and gave us his words that the President's approval covered all the unions. And we have been waiting, and our patients are running out.
So 4 months now, yes. No word from the government.
No word from the government.
No payment.
Yes,
and you have confirmation that ASU, that's the university lecturers, have been paid.
That's correct.
I mean, you set up, ASU fought this fight because I was in the loop. I mean, I had conversation with federal government and ASU when this strike was lingering at the time. We went to almost 7 or 8 months at a time. And they also fought for a payment platform, which they agreed with. I'm not sure whether it's that same payment platform that is being used. Is there any form of technical delay or anything that could have hindered being an obstacle, maybe the payment procedure that could have been the cause for your own? Do you envisage that maybe that is the cause?
It's just a case of injustice, because we are fully aware that the Chief of Staff wrote a memo conveying the President's approval to the Minister of Finance through the Accountant General. And that memo only spoke about the academic staff. And clearly and conspicuously missing were the non-teaching staff. And that was why we wrote the protest letter to draw his attention as to whether it was an omission.
And you don't think it's a payment platform?
No, it's not a question of payment platform, because till today, even our February salary we received with what is called the new IPPIS, not the normal IPPIS as they claimed, But the issue of that strike was also contingent on some disagreements our unions had with government. Issues about the stoppage of our renegotiation, the non-payment of our allowances, and of course, other issues about the dissolution of governing councils in our universities and other injustices meted on our members. And we were promised, and it was captured in the budget of 2023, as was shown to us by government.
So it's not even the waiver payments that is being, that you have suffered, non-payment. You have also suffered stoppage of some of the N allowances.
Exactly. 50 billion naira was made available in the 2023 budget for the payment of allowances to all staff working in the universities, public universities, federal government. And that would never saw the light of the day. The stabilization fund, and then, of course, the disruption in the renegotiation of our 2009 agreement. All the other unions also had, these agreements going on before the untimely death of the chairman of that committee, Professor Briggs, and nothing came up again thereafter.
And the number of your members across the nation is about how many?
We have close to 50,000 members
across the nation
in public universities, states and federal.
When was the last time you interfaced with federal government on this matter?
Officially, we met with the ministers of education, the senior minister and the state minister of state in November last year, with the permanent secretary then. And that was where he assured us that all our grievances will be addressed, and that before the end of the year, all things being equal, we were going to get all these things that we tabled before him. He's doing his best quite okay because we've been in contact with him. But clearly what is happening is that there is something somewhere behind and beyond probably the ministry that is the cock in the wheel of the progress of workers in the universities.
Some universities, students are writing examination in most universities at the moment.
Yeah.
And you know the meaning. In the next 1 week, some of them will still be. You've given the federal government 7 days ultimatum, which starts from Monday, isn't it?
Yes.
And so that's a week for them to take action. Yes. Upon which, if there are no action, you will go on industrial strike.
Definitely. Because
and that has its implication.
Yeah, of course.
That's a tacit shutdown of our universities again.
It is quite unfortunate. No member of the non-teaching staff unions is happy to go on any strike. And in fact, no union member wants to go on strike. But when you are pushed to the wall, what do? You have to push back. We cannot, you can see what is happening in the country. The economy is in doldrums. Everybody is suffering. Most of our universities are sited way outside the townships. And our members have to commute every day. Fuel cannot be accessed. Food is scarce. Our medicals cannot be attended to. Members are suffering quite clearly. And worst case scenario is even the case of state universities. Governors now have made the universities to become constituency projects. In Ondo State, for example, all the state universities are on strike already because the funding is poor. They don't pay salaries. In Abia State University, for about 13 months, workers have not been paid. Government just keep on, establishing universities, and then there's no corresponding, funding. As of today, I can tell you here without fear of any contradiction, no vice chancellor working in any public university, especially federal, that has enough money that he receives from government that can pay his NEPA bills. No university. So everybody is just suffering. Workers are there. Their welfare is not catered for. Salaries are not paid on time. Yeah. Allowances are withdrawn. And you expect the best out of the managers of such universities?
So when the elephants fight, the grass suffers, and the students, we have some of them who have an engagement with the schools for 4 years. They're still extended for another year or so, and this will affect their lives going forward. Is there anything that could be done to avert this looming crisis?
Yeah, much can be done. And it is just the directive to be given by whoever that is keeping that money, that this money should be paid to workers of NASU and SANU so that we get our salaries 4 months, that has been approved by the president and conveyed in a letter that was circulated in the press. So whoever that is behind this is the one sabotaging either the government and or creating problem for the students. We are parents too. We have our children studying in such schools. We are the only people that knows exactly where this problem is. And as of today, the problem can be solved within 24 hours.
So if your members go on strike, the universities will almost shut down?
Definitely, most definitely, because we are in charge of security, we are in charge of administration, we are in charge of medicals, we are in charge of hostels, we are in charge of electricity, we are in charge of everything apart from teaching. So once our members, down tools, no university can function in Nigeria.
I pray this does not happen. I pray someone listening now and watching will be able to take action. For Mr. Muhammad Ibrahim, felicitations and good wishes to your members. And I hope that the government will take action and take heed such that this strike action will not happen within these 7 days. But thank you so much indeed for talking to us. If anything changed, please kindly come back to us and let's talk about this. Thank you so much. Comrade Muhammad Ibrahim is the president of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian University. Thanks so much for coming tonight.
Thanks for being here.
Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'm Shunwa Kimale. God bless Nigeria.